Welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope everybody is doing well for another Square and Compass live stream, the last one before the weekend. So I hope everybody's doing well. Let's give it a few minutes. Let's wait to see. Um, let's wait to see who joins. Please take a moment, as always, to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing and if there's anything that you want to talk about. Positive, negative, neutral when it comes to Freemasonry. I would love to hear it. Oops, I got to get this table fixed. I hope everybody's also looking forward to a great weekend. Next week on Tuesday, don't forget, is the Remembrance Day ceremony. I'm probably going to be live streaming from that. At least live streaming our ceremony here in Windsor at the Cenotaph. So we'll see how that goes. But please, for now, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing. These Friday streams, I just talk about anything. I don't have any specific topics about Freemasonry. Rather, it's what you, the audience, wants to talk about. Do some super chats, hang out. Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. And pretty soon, in about 2 weeks, I will be, there you go, pin message. I will be traveling to Edinburgh. Well, I'll be traveling to London and then from London to Scotland, seeing some family. It's going to be an awesome time and I can't wait. So, yeah, in the meantime, though, let's wait to see who joins. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry? Positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear it. And let's give it a bit of time. If any of you guys saw, out of curiosity, House of Dynamite, let me know what you thought. I watched it a couple times and I've loved it so far. Sun, daily stream, daily gym. Sun, are you saying that you listen to me in the gym regularly, or you go to the gym, or are you just comparing this? 120 plus 123 plus 122 equals 365 a day. Hey man, for me, it's daily stream, daily Freemasonry. You're not wrong. Christmas is coming soon. I can't wait for it. If your Masonic Lodge is doing anything for Christmas, let me know. I always love to celebrate and promote things that are happening in Masonic lodges for the holiday season. 2026 is also coming soon. By the way, son, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know how you're doing. You know, it's funny. That's right. Red shirt on Friday, indeed. How's it going, Dad? Good to see you. I know you got a few things happening for the Legion this coming holiday season. This coming weekend, I should say, with Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day weekend, poppies. I got my poppy. I prefer to have it more up here because it's easier for people to see. Spot as was above the screen. But hey, that's okay. And you're not wrong, son. Time is flying. 2026 is also coming very soon. It scares me to think how soon it's coming. Let's give it a bit of time. Let's see who else joins. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, I was saying watching House of Dynamite, which is about basically a nuclear missile is detected traveling to America. And they're trying to figure out A, who sent it, and B, how to respond. There's one scene where there's a discussion between an American political appointee and a Russian, I think it was a Russian national minister, where Russia is saying we didn't do it, and the Americans saying we need proof of that. Basically, they're debating how best to proceed with the response. Obviously, Russia's terrified that whether they did it or not, and they say they didn't do it, there's going to be retaliation, retaliatory strikes against them or against another country that will spiral into a war. Um, and they're going back and forth. And it always made me think when I watched that scene, what if both of those officials, government officials, were Freemasons? Um, would that have changed the dynamic? Would they have been more likely to trust each other? Would they have been less likely to, would they have been more likely to trust each other? Would it have not made a difference? There's been plenty of times in history where Masons have been on opposing sides of a conflict. King George and George Washington were famously both Freemasons. Or would it have created more of a trust in those negotiations? I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting idea, interesting thing to contemplate. I don't even know if I think it would have made a difference or not. Or how would they know, right? You're not, when you've got a nuclear missile heading towards your country and you're talking to somebody who may potentially be able to provide some answers, you're not going to respond with, you're probably not going to take a few moments to ask if they're a traveling man or if they've been to the East. It should, however, the black center of this poppy fell out. So I had no choice but to do a last minute switcheroo. The pin fell out. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in this apartment building, but I've got a couple of poppies. I've got one that I have here, and then I've got one at the Masonic Temple that I wear on my suits. So Spirit of Justice, happy Friday to you. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining. Any plans for this weekend? Down in your neck of the woods, South America, do they have any type of Remembrance Days or Memorial Days? Obviously, this Remembrance Day really was, it's kind of primarily based on World War One, World War Two, Korean veterans, although it's a time to honor all of our veterans. But the November 11th date reflects, the Great Wars. What about in South America? Was there or is there any type of similar day to celebrate or commemorate would be a better term, and pay respects to the veterans, of those countries? And let's give it, not that I know of. I'm assuming it's probably done as part of like Independence Day celebrations or the founding of your, whatever day those countries have as like the founding day. That's probably a day where they celebrate not only past political figures but also the army. Would be, or veterans in general, would be my assumption. Let's give it a bit more time. Let's wait to see who joins. As always, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe. But interestingly enough, on Sunday this week, so this weekend, we have our usual, I shouldn't say typical, but our usual Remembrance Day service here in Windsor at the Masonic War Memorial in Malden Park, here in Windsor. That's a tradition. It's done every year. My plan is to try to be there. I should be there. Every year when I am there, I take pictures. This year, it seems like it's going to be freezing, so I'm getting ready to be very cold. I am well. How are you doing? Thank you for joining. Anybody who's here who's new, by the way, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Yes, it has been a long time no see. You can change that by making sure that you hit that notifications bell, which means every time I live stream or post a video, you get a notification. Jay Sins says hello. Hello, Jay. Please hit like and subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. And I hope everybody, once again, is doing very well. These streams on Fridays at 1 p.m., I don't really talk about anything specific. Rather, I just wait to see what people want to talk about, what their thoughts are, what their questions are, what their ideas are, positive, negative, or neutral. Um, Initiation tomorrow. Nice. That is awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy your first meeting as a Master Mason. I also hope you enjoy your first time watching an initiation as a Master Mason. I'm sure it'll be a blast, and I'm sure your lodge will do great. Also, the Facebook. There were Masons in World War One and World War Two on both sides. Obviously, Germany under the Nazi regime outlawed Freemasonry or banished Freemasonry and did send Freemasons to concentration camps, but that's not to say that there weren't some German Freemasons who still existed, probably met underground or pretended, or kept their items but didn't advertise it. But obviously, Freemasonry under Nazi Germany was outlawed, as it tends to be in almost all dictatorial or authoritarian regimes. Franco, Soviet Union, etc., etc. Let's take a few more moments. Let's wait to see who else joins. Please, as always, take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button, and I would truly appreciate it. But yeah, famous. I'm interested in, and this is going to set the conspiracy theorists crazy, who I sometimes get, but I would be really curious to see if there were more Masons. I don't know of any off the top of my head, but if there were Masons in like governmental positions that has to do with negotiations, diplomacy on the various and different sides of not even conflicts, but just negotiations, like in the American government and the Russian government, or American and Chinese, or whatever it might be, would we see a more harmonious world, a more harmonious diplomatic situation between the world? I don't know. I have no clue, but it's an interesting thought to have. So, Spirit, is your lodge doing anything? I don't know if I asked you this already, but if I didn't, is your Masonic lodge doing anything for the holiday season, for Christmas? Do you have like Christmas parties, special events? What type of stuff do you have planned? I'll look for it. I'm streaming right now, but I'll check it out after, see if I can find it. Let's give it a bit more time. As always, just going to wait to see who joins. No specific topics for today's stream. It's just us hanging out, seeing who wants to chat. Be prepared for this weekend. I'll be having my social media posts, as always. So, as I have any posts, when I'm doing my posts, like to them, comment to them, help the algorithm out. I'm actually going to be attending a writing class, a writing circle on Saturday. Obviously, I try to write about Freemasonry regularly, and I thought it might be kind of fun to meet with some writers to see how they write, how I can write better, how I can write more effectively in communicating about Freemasonry. We usually have a break during December, says Spirit. But just because, Spirit, you or your lodge has a break doesn't mean there are not still things that you can do, right, as it relates to having that break. You're still able to, for example, hold a banquet or a dinner or a special celebration It's kind of the same way, here in Ontario and in North America. Many of our lodges take a break during the summer months, but I'm always encouraging them, just because you're taking a break, it doesn't mean you can't hold a barbecue, hold a social event, hold a ladies' night, whatever it might be. There's a ton of stuff that you can do in order to kind of keep people thinking about lodge during a break. One of the worst things that you can do, right, is I would say one of the worst things you can do is, if you are taking a break, to kind of stop holding any type of social or otherwise, other functions, because the danger is then people forget about, not forget, but if Freemasonry is not top of mind or not on your mind, it's very easy to become complacent and not, you forget to check your ritual, you forget to check in on your brothers. I think even during a Masonic break, when you don't have meetings, you can still schedule special events and social functions, practice nights, mentoring nights, things like that. I'm hoping any of my American brethren and friends and family are not being too negatively affected, or not being affected at all, by the flights cut at dozens of major airports. Actually, a friend of mine on Facebook was saying that he had one flight returning to Chicago. I'm not sure where he's at, but he was returning home to Chicago. So he had one flight that was canceled. Then he got a second flight that ended up being delayed. So it's like, and I don't think he's made it back home yet. So, certainly if you're a Masonic traveler, I would just say, and you're trying to get to a Masonic event, a Masonic celebration, whatever it might be, give yourself some extra time. Don't assume that, if you're cutting it super short or cutting it super quick to get from point A to point B. If you have a Masonic, let's say, celebration or banquet at 5 p.m. and you have a flight arriving that day at, noon, maybe book a flight earlier, because there's a lot of cancellations and delays hitting travelers. As it should be. I remember going to some of those Christmas parties as a kid, so I'm glad to see you doing both. I think it's awesome to be holding Remembrance Day services, or laying a wreath at a Remembrance Day service, and also a children's Christmas party. What I do, it keeps things more interesting. It keeps things more fun, right? You want to keep your life exciting, put it that way. There is not a fly behind me on the wall. I'm not going to turn around. And even if there is, let the fly exist. Colonizer, not a big fan of your picture, that's for sure. I am comfortable going on record and saying I do not like the Nazis. That may be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to state it. Not a fan of your profile pic. Well, I'm just going to put that on the record once again. Let the fly exist. Yes, indeed. Hey, the fly deserves to live as much as anything else. It's not hurting anybody. It's not causing any harm to anybody. So yeah, let the fly exist. And in fact, I would say, as I've said before, I think Freemasonry, one of its greatest strengths, is that it is against, it is welcoming to all different faiths, religions, ethnicities, groups of people. It does not discriminate. It does not set hierarchies based on somebody's race or whatever else it might be. So I would say that Freemasonry, one of the things that makes it a good thing to exist within the world is the fact that it would be anti-Nazi ideology, as all great things should be. It's interesting. I just saw. It's really fascinating. Thank you, brother Courtney. It's wonderful to have you. Oh my gosh, Spirit, that sucks. I heard that there was a lot of like pollution that came from the plane crash, like a giant smoke cloud. Um, like a giant smoke cloud that uh, affected a lot of people within like a 3 or 4 mile radius around the plane crash. At least that's what I heard. So, well, I mean, first of all, when you say banking system, I feel like you're coding that for something. Freemasonry welcomes men of all races, as it should. Christ, uh, Jewish or black or European or whatever, Indian, indigenous. It welcomes them all as it should because it recognizes that we're all equal. Things, as Euclid said, the famous geometrician, and as was mentioned in the movie Lincoln, things that are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. What that means is if, I am equal under the eyes of the Supreme Being, and if a Jewish person, a black person, a European person, whatever it is also equal to the Supreme Being, then we are also equal to each other, or equal in the eyes of the Supreme Being, I should say. Um, well, it doesn't make them good. Coffee, Pamela, because I love coffee. Um, Coffee is my favorite thing. It's interesting, actually. It's funny having you here, colonizer. I recently saw a video, and it's fascinating. It's called Don't Be a Sucker. It was released by the United States, I believe it was released by the United States um, Department of Defense in 1943. And it was fascinating because you have basically the most famous clip is you have this demagogue. He's up on this crate and he's talking to a group of people and he's saying basically, he's a white dude, obviously, and he's saying, I'm just an average American. And the problem with this country is we've got black people. He doesn't use the term black people, he uses a different term. But I'm just going to say we've got black people taking jobs. We've got Catholics coming into this country. We've got this group and that group coming in and ruining our country. And there's this one guy listening to him who says, hey, this guy seems to be making a lot of sense. But anyways, he's going on and on and on about all these groups that are ruining the country for white men like him, ruining the country for average Americans like him. And he lists all these people he's against: Catholics, black people, Jewish people, etc., etc. But then he mentions Freemasons. He said we need to get Freemasons out of the country as well. And the guy who's listening to him says that, wait a second, I'm a Freemason, right? And if I'm a Freemason and he hates me, what does that mean about everything else he's saying? And then they kind of talk about it. But it made me realize, and this is, if somebody is prejudiced against a certain group of people, right, sooner or later, it's going to affect other groups. Right? This idea of racism or prejudice, even if, you shouldn't, but even if you're okay with the idea of somebody being prejudiced or racist against one specific group because it's not your group, sooner or later, it's going to become your group, right? Sooner or later, it's going to expand. So this idea of when the guy up on his soapbox, hello, gaming, thank you for being here. hello from Serbia, hello from Canada, was saying like he didn't like black people, the guy said, well, it's okay. And when he said he doesn't like Catholics, oh, it's okay. And when he said he doesn't like Jewish people, it's okay. But when he said, and I don't like Freemasons, that's when the person had an issue because suddenly it was about him. And I guess my point is right from the get-go, you should be aware that if anybody is speaking prejudiced against a particular group of people, sooner or later, it's going to come back and affect you. I would hope that you would be opposed to prejudice and racism because it's just morally wrong and it's a bad position to have. But from a self-interest perspective, you should understand that, right, today they're against Jewish people, tomorrow they're against Catholics, the day after tomorrow they're against Freemasons. And, there's a whole poem about this. Gaming, why is there a Nazi in here? Well, because I'm not a believer in blocking people as a general rule. He can be in here. I think he's incorrect. And I also think that within Freemasonry, one of our greatest strengths is the fact that we can demonstrate through our tolerance and kindness and respect for people of all different races and beliefs and ethnicities, that we can maybe get him to reconsider foolish ideologies like Nazism. If I just get rid of him and kick him out of the stream, then I don't think it's going to change his mind at all. Well, I appreciate you saying hi. However, you got to understand when you got that as your screen, when you got that as your screen picture or your profile pic, you're gonna get some pushback. That's just the nature of it, and you should get some pushback. I don't think there's anything wrong with pushing back against. I know this word has been way overused, but a pretty deplorable, if you will, profile pic. That doesn't mean I'm going to kick you out, but that does mean I'm going to call you out on it, right? And that will be true for every time you jump in. Mr. Keeps, how's it going? Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. And, when you say, I don't have to worry about diversity in Iceland, I don't think diversity is something anybody should worry about. I mean, what I'll say, I've given this example before within Freemasonry. When I first joined, I'm not going to go through my initiation ceremony. That is something that everybody, if you wanted to learn about it, you should join yourself. But I will say one of the things I distinctly remember about my initiation ceremony is hearing a very diverse range of accents. I heard accents from the Philippines. I heard accents from England, a Scouse accent, a Liverpool accent, in fact. I heard people who sound like me, like Ontario, Canadian type of accents. I heard accents from, it was like, if I recall correctly, it was either Austrian or Hungary, but like an Eastern European style accent. All of these different accents basically coming my way, right? Diversity isn't something you have to worry about. Diversity can actually be a pretty strong, it can actually be something that strengthens a organization, strengthens a country, strengthens whatever it is. I mean, as a good example of it, and it's funny because people really get this in every way except for society, I feel like. For example, if you have, if you are in the stock market and you don't have a diversified portfolio, you're at risk of losing everything. When it comes to nature, genetically speaking, right? If you don't have diversity within your genetic background, like Darwin pointed out, on many islands, many species end up going not extinct, but having, severe difficulty in reproducing and growing their numbers if they don't have a sufficient amount of genetic diversity within their opportunities, right? It's called a genetic bottleneck. So in every other area, even Elon Musk, Dad brought up Elon Musk. One thing he talks about is wanting to have humans on Mars, which I support, by the way. I'd love to see it happen. And he points out, like, it's insane the idea of having the entire human race existing on a single planet, which I think he's right about, right? We want to be diverse in a multiplanetary species because it's going to make us stronger. So diversity in almost every other area people understand to be a strength. To me, a society would be no different. Diversity of culture, diversity of language, diversity of beliefs. And I think within Freemasonry, you see a organization that is made stronger through its diversity and diversifications. AMIR, welcome. Thank you for being here. Amir, thank you for being here. Gaming, thank you for the hearts and the flags. I appreciate it. Well, I mean, I can be pretty pessimistic myself, colonizer at times. I think the reasons for my pessimism would probably be very different than the reasons from your pessimism. However, I would not say dystopian. I think that's pretty extreme. I think, honestly, practically speaking, the world is actually pretty good at the moment. You think about all the opportunities, even for somebody like myself, right? I'm missing my legs. I was born without legs. Well, colonizer, I think, even though I strongly disagree with, I suspect everything that you think, I'm still happy that you're in the world, as strange as that may sound. I hope you continue to exist within the world, and I hope you never would off yourself. I just think maybe you need to reflect on why you're so angry, um, and perhaps instead of looking outward to maybe different races or groups for your anger, um, maybe consider the anger coming is coming from something else because you're legally blind. Well, I mean, I'm disabled as well. I have a couple of medical conditions, but the one that I mention most frequently in here is I have no legs. I'm in a wheelchair. And one of the reasons why I don't think the world is dystopian and I still have some happiness about the world is, you know, for most of human history, and this is true for almost every country in the world, for most of human history, um, I would have been discarded at birth, right? I would have been discarded. And then for a significant portion of human history, I would have been put in a home. Basically, I would never have been able to live independently or have my own life. I would have been in some type of assisted living facility. I would have been, basically not been able to contribute to the world at all. It's only really in the last 100 or so years, maybe 75 years, that having a disability, being blind, whatever it is, we're not considered automatically disqualifying from living a normal life in which you can contribute. So it's hard for me to say things are dystopian when, like I said, I just consider myself very lucky to have been born when I was born. To the parents I have, to the family I had, the world has given me a lot of opportunities that for most of human history I would not have been granted. So it's hard to argue things are getting worse. And even being blind. I mean, for most of human history, being blind would have, been almost a death sentence. Now you can still exist in the world, and it's a wonderful thing, right? Although, the people in your profile pic would not have felt the same way. They would have thrown me in a concentration camp or just killed me for not being able to contribute. Same thing with the disabled. So keep that in mind. Um, I can't tell if you're being facetious or not. However, what I will say is, in my opinion, very often it is the case that people who hate others or want to spread misery usually are miserable themselves and are looking for reasons to be miserable. But you can hate all the right people for as long as you want. It's not going to make your life any better. It's not going to make yourself any happier. Or I shouldn't. You can hate whomever you want. Colonizer, in my opinion, it's not going to make yourself happier. It's not going to make your life better. It's not going to change how you feel. I know this sounds incredibly cheesy and incredibly corny, but choosing love will actually make your life better and make yourself happier. And especially, I can understand on some level hating certain people you've had contact with who have personality traits or have done things you don't like. So be it, I guess. However, hating people based on characteristics they have no control over, their race, their ethnicity, or hating people for religious beliefs or whatever it is, that just seems very, very silly and stupid to me. So, colonizer, I'd hope that you reconsider the way you feel about life. And also, I would hope that when you said above somewhere, I'd rather off myself than live in that world. I hope, and I guess I'll use the term pray. I don't know if what I do would be considered praying in a technical sense. I will hope and pray, though, that you never do that, that rather you're able to find peace and happiness. Because even if I disagree with everything you say, you're here in the world for a reason, and I hope you find a reason to stay beyond hatred and unhappiness. As Dad said, there's a blind lady in our block living by herself and holding a full-time job. And again, could she have done that in the 30s, 40s, 50s? Probably not. So we should probably be grateful to live in the age in which we live in 2025. I certainly, despite my sometimes pessimism about the future, I know what Brother Courtney said there, and I appreciate that. But I can have a pessimistic streak in me a lot of times. But when I do, I try to remember the positive things that exist in the world, and how lucky I am to be Canadian, to be alive in 2025, to have my dad, to have the people I have in my life. A lot of people don't have those things. We should be grateful. I mean, colonizer, I guess what I'd say is at least you did find something to be grateful for. I don't think there's nothing's wrong with thinking that, colonizer, that you live in the greatest country in the world. I've always said, wherever it is that you live, you should always love that country and want the best for it. Now, you can disagree, and you should agree, disagree with the, potentially the political government or the politics of the time. So, for example, I would say for Germans during World War II, they should have still loved Germany while also hating hating Hitler and hating the current political government. I think that is appropriate. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't love your country and be patriotic towards your country. Well, there you go. That's not a bad life, Pastor Sempa. I suspect, colonizer, that you do have some violence and drugs and prisoners and homeless people, but maybe not many as compared to other populations. I will say though, Iceland, to its credit, and one thing I've always admired about Iceland. I used to work in a jail here in Windsor. Mm, hot coffee. To my knowledge, Iceland has a really the emphasis in Iceland on criminal justice is more based on rehabilitation and reform, and much less based on punishment. I understand the jails are actually quite nice and quite focused on rehabilitation, government, programs, education for criminals, people in jail, things like that. And I think that's a really good thing. There's a lot of left wing qualities in Iceland, colonizer. Keep that in mind. Um, I mean, and the idea of the government caring, yeah. So it's funny because based on your profile pic, you'd think you'd be opposed to the kind of government programs and services. And maybe consider the type of life that you would have, colonizer, in Nazi Germany as a blind person. It would be not a good life, is what I would suggest to you. And again, somebody asked me above, the reason I will keep people in the stream, even if they have very, what I would say, either profile pics or ideas with which I disagree, is because my hope is Freemasonry can demonstrate to people that actually diversity is good, kindness is good, not hating people based on religion is good, not hating people based on whether they're Jewish or any other race is good. Actually, welcoming people of different races, ethnicities, beliefs, all that stuff is good. And so, yeah, so long as you're not swearing or insulting, I will keep you in the stream. Pandemic preparedness, what is my thoughts towards that? I mean, I'm very worried about, this is my own personal opinion, I am very worried about pandemic preparedness because I think that for a lot of reasons, I think anti-vaccine sentiment, vaccine skepticism, a lot of different things. I think we are less prepared for a pandemic now than we were pre-COVID. Um, I'm proud, to get all my vaccines. I think everybody should get vaccinated. I think if you're a Freemason, and this is a very controversial opinion, so Spirit, Courtney, Harry, you may disagree with me, and that's fine. I think we as Freemasons have a responsibility to be vaccinated. Um, Obviously, if you have an allergy, you shouldn't, but otherwise, I think you should because I think we as Freemasons have a responsibility to care not simply for ourselves, but for our communities at large. And I think getting vaccinated is one way we demonstrate that care and concern. Not exclusively. I think we also have responsibility to try to eat healthy, to exercise, to take care of ourselves so we're as healthy as we can be. Not again because it's about us, but because the healthier we are, the less likely we are to need to rely on government resources and government assistance, and we can leave those for other people who may need them. But I think we're not really well prepared. I even think in some ways Masonic lodges could be better prepared for a pandemic, in the sense that our lodges should have a plan. So if there is another pandemic, and if there is a situation where we cannot meet in person, do we have a plan to meet virtually? Do we have a plan to check in on brothers who may be at risk of pandemic diseases? So, for example, if we have older brethren who are more at risk of maybe, if there's a pandemic, they would be more at risk. Um, do we have people who can call them, check in on them, ask them how they're doing, encourage them to I don't know, stay in place, deliver food to them, right? Maybe you could deliver them care packages. You leave them on the doors, right? During the pandemic, To our credit, there were many Masonic buildings and Masonic lodges that organized care packages to at-risk members who had phone chains, who, if a brother was in the hospital with COVID, would call him to ask him how he's doing, if he had his cell phone with him. Even some who delivered actually care packages to hospitals. Um, uh, to take care of the nurses and the doctors. So, sure, you can recommend Masonic books. Uh, any ones you want to suggest? For me, the one I always recommend to start with is Freemasonry for Dummies. Yes, and that drives me crazy. I mean, life is hard enough. Life is challenging enough. Like, why are we making it harder on ourselves? Get vaccinated. Like, no matter how well you try to live your life, you're going to face challenges, you're going to face problems. Why are we choosing to make our lives harder by, for example, not getting vaccinated? And now we got measles on the outbreak once again. It's insane. Like, how about we don't have any unforced errors? I mean, I guess you could call it Pastor Sempa. What I would say is it's a sign of, for me, it's a sign of modesty in that I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I don't know everything. I'm not going to pretend like I do, so I'm going to rely on the majority of doctors and those in government positions who have trained and studied for these things, right? That is what I'm going to rely upon. In the same way, I'm not a engineer, so I'm going to rely on the engineers who build my wheelchair that they know what they're doing. I have to rely on a certain extent on third parties, and I can always find a third party who will disagree with the mainstream. But you can't live your life that way by always just going, what do I think? And then finding the expert who agrees with your opinion. I think what you have to do is, at least this is what I would say, you have to look at the majority consensus and kind of base yourself on that. The way I think about it is, look, I've been a Freemason for 20 years. I've been incredibly active. I've dedicated my life to it. That doesn't mean I'm right about everything, but that does mean if somebody who's never been a Freemason and has no Masonic experience or less than me starts telling me what I should think of Freemasonry, I'm going to respond with, I think my experience and history and engagement is deserving of some respect and of some, being willing to be modest in the face of my knowledge. But I then have to provide that same discretion or that same level of respect to those in other fields. I'm not a scientist. I've never studied vaccines. I'm not going to start questioning the majority opinion of a doctor or of my doctor, right? My doctor went to medical school. She's been a doctor for years. I owe her a level of respect to trust what she's saying to me. In the same way, I think people owe me a level of respect when I speak about Freemasonry. I mean, Pastor, I would be very, very hesitant of using the term a lot. One of the best lessons I ever got, and it came to writing, right. I used to write letters in when I worked in the jail. I would write letters for inmates, and I'd write letters about what they had done in jail, right? Like what they had done while in custody, programs they attended, how they interacted with others, what steps they were taking to try to make a better life for themselves while in jail or to prepare for being released. And I once wrote in a letter, I said something to the effect of, he has taken a lot of programs while in custody. And then somebody said to me, it was a judge said, or not a judge, but it was somebody above me said, no, he didn't take a lot of programs. He took a specific number of programs, and you need to write that specific number of programs in the letter. And ever since then, whenever I'm writing about anything, I always remember that lesson. So, Pastor, when you say a lot of scientists has said the vaccine, it's like a lot of scientists didn't say the vaccine is bad. A specific number of scientists said the vaccine is bad. And if you don't know the specific number, you should be really hesitant to write that. Um, because it makes it sound like when you say that, what it makes it sound like is it's like a 50-50 thing. And it's not. A significantly higher percentage of scientists support the vaccine versus those who are opposed to it. And because it's a significantly higher number, that's what you need to keep in mind, not kind of a vague assertion of a lot of scientists. Even if you said like 10% of scientists say X, but 90% say Y, which is what I believe it is. Actually, I think it's 5%. I think 5% are opposed, something like that to 95%. The point is when it's 95 to 5, 99 to 1%, it could be, um, you know, using vague language like a lot of, or several or many, that sets an incomplete or improper picture of the truth. Um, I mean, I guess what I'd say is I took a bunch of them. I never got sick. So you take that in mind. I got 7 COVID vaccines. I got the two, and then I got my boosters as well as the flu shot, my hepatitis shots. And I'm still here, not growing green as of yet. Brother Courtney, how did you personally fulfill your Masonic obligation? That's a really great question. Um, um, Well, that is definitely not the case. The vaccines are not controlled by any lobby uh, because I got a whole bunch of them. That's a really good question, Courtney. And I think that's a really valid question because one of the biggest mistakes we make in Freemasonry is we think that to be a Masonic brother, like we saw this during the well, I mean, Walter, you can be proud of whatever you want, I guess, but I think that's a very silly reason to be proud to be vaccine free. I think that's a very silly reason to be proud of oneself. So during COVID, when we couldn't meet in person, a lot of Masons told me that, well, that's it, Freemasonry's done, it's over, it's dead, whatever it is. And that wasn't the case, right? There are many ways to fulfill Masonic relief or brotherhood when you can meet in person. You can, for example, deliver care packages. One thing we did during Christmas, during the lockdowns, we couldn't meet in person, is we actually delivered. Actually, hold on just 1 second. I'm going to see if I can find it. I'm going to be back in a couple. I'm not going too far, I promise. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes, it's right up here. I'll be back in a second. We delivered these stockings to all of our members and widows. So they got Christmas stockings in honor of the holiday season. We delivered some actually early in the pandemic. We couldn't meet in person. We actually delivered hand sanitizer to older members who might be at risk. This is before we knew that. To my understanding, actually, the risk was primarily airborne. To my understanding, I could be wrong, but we still delivered the hand sanitizer just in case. We also did a virtual beer and cheese tasting where we went to a local business. They created packages of beer, cheese, and meats. You paid $20 and you had the package picked up or delivered to you. And then you did a tasting of beer and cheese. Online, it was virtual. So they said, okay, open your package. This beer is marked A with this type of, with these types of uh, cheese and this type of meat, and this is how we created the beer. Then this is how we brewed the beer because it's a local brewery. This is how we, made the. This is why we paired it with the cheese, paired it by the meat. This is the taste flavors. You have to be willing to be creative. You have to be willing to be different. But if you can do those things, you can absolutely um, continue to have relief during when you can't meet in person. You can send letters if you're traveling, and let's say you can't visit your Masonic lodge, you live out of jurisdiction. Um, you can still send Christmas letters to your lodge and ask the brother to read it out. Ask the secretary to read out your Christmas letter, your Thanksgiving letter. You can even order food for the brethren. Thanks to apps like Uber Eats, whatever it is. Let's say you're traveling out of country, you can't be at a lodge meeting. Offer to order food for the junior warden and send it in as a gift to the lodge. There are a million ways to practice relief. Well, Walter Matthews, who says, I'm a sheep, I guess I'm a sheep. What I would say is reflexive opposition is no more or less sheepish than reflexive support, or reflexive acquiescence. Either way is you're still a sheep. You're either a sheep to the opposition views or a sheep to the mainstream views. What I would also say is, it's not that I do whatever I'm told by anybody. It's that I will do what I'm told by a doctor, by my doctor in particular. Because again, I think part of living in a society is demonstrating respect for those people who are tasked with whatever the responsibilities are. So for me, again, as a Freemason, if I'm the worshipful master, or because of my 20 years of experience, because I'm here, I expect that at least the things I say will be taken, you will take the things I say in consideration as it relates to my experience and knowledge and 20 years. If I have a doctor, I'm choosing to have a doctor, I should be respectful of my doctor's experience. I should be respectful of my doctor's expertise, my doctor's education. To me, it's disrespectful to have a doctor and not listen to them. That to me is a very foolish thing. Well, I mean, I'm not wearing a mask now. I mean, I think, right, I believe in sacrifice. I think it's a good thing. When you say, why did you have to? I mean, I had to because the government of Canada mandated the wearing of a mask, right? I have no idea, because again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak to the medical reasons for it. I did it because I believed that the instructions, even if they weren't ultimately correct, it was everybody's best guess at the time as to how to proceed. It's not that I think the government's always right. That's a foolish attitude to have. Nor is it that I think my doctor's always right. That's a foolish attitude to have. Rather, what I think is that the doctors and those government officials, maybe not the politicians per se, but the officials, are trying their best and using their best evidence at the time to make decisions. Does that mean even that my doctor will get it right 100% of the time? Probably not. What that should mean to me, though, is that if my doctor recommends a course of action, I'm going to believe it's the best course of action because I'm going to believe my doctor has my best interests at heart. If it turns out at some point the doctor gets it wrong, I guess then bully for me, I have to deal with those consequences. I hope my doctor would apologize. Having said that, I've, been around for 42 years. I've always tried to listen to what my doctor tells me to do and always done my best to follow that advice. And I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm not glowing green yet. And I can, consider myself pretty healthy. Got good blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. It would be incredibly unkind of me or cruel of me to assume that my doctor is trying to hurt me when all of my evidence points to the opposite, and all of my experiences point to the opposite. So, again, why would I believe the alternative, right? Again, it's not about believing they're always right. It's about believing that they're working with the best evidence they have and the best knowledge they have, with my best interests in hearts, best interest at heart. And choosing to ignore their advice and stuff is not helpful. That's true for doctors. That's true for anything. Again, doesn't mean they always get it right. Even for me, I'm a Freemason. I don't get it right all the time. There's been many times I've made mistakes in Masonic lodges. I've made mistakes when it comes to Freemasonry. I've made mistakes on this stream. When I do, I always try to admit it right away that I made a mistake and I was wrong. But I also hope that people understand when I make those mistakes, it's not out of anything other than, me making the best decision I could at the time with the information I had. I care about Freemasons. This whole channel is about Freemasonry, Walter. That's what this whole channel is about, Square and Compass Promotions. I talk about Freemasonry. I do play Assassin's Creed. I play Assassin's Creed 3, and I do love it. I never really watched, I never really watched, I never really watched King of the Hill. They are not, Walter. It does not surprise me that you think that, but we are not. The Illuminati started well after Freemasonry and really died out around the early 19th century. It was started by a guy called Adam Weishaupt, in 1777, and it was actually started as like an anti-Masonic group. It was started because he thought Freemasons were not esoteric enough. I'll be back in just 1 second. And it was too expensive. So he started a cheaper, more esoteric group that ended up dying out. Maybe I know less than what I'm saying. I'm not that smart. But I've been a Mason for 20 years. And again, I think, Walter, this kind of goes to my point. As a Mason for 20 years, as someone who's dedicated his life to it, you don't have to believe everything I say, but I would hope you would give me a certain benefit of the doubt, that at least my heart is in the right place, and I'm going by the best evidence I have. Yes, born this way. I was born in a wheelchair. And that's another thing why I'm grateful for the medical system, because if I had been born, let's say 100 years earlier than I was in 1883 or 1783 or even the 1920s, I would have ended up living at best, I would have been in some type of home for the invalids. And I would not be getting to live the life I live. For most of human history, I would have just been discarded. Right? And so when we knock the medical system, we forget about everything it provided us, and all the opportunities it provided us. There you go. And Dad's still here, and he got vaccinated for measles. I'm just plugging in my phone. In just 1 second, if I could. There we go. Got my phone plugged in. Well, I'm sure he would. And I mean, it's not that there weren't disabilities back in the day, but I mean, that's a great example. The people Jesus sat with and had to heal 2,000 years ago, look at the life that they led, how difficult and challenging it was to be disabled compared to the life we're living in. It's not to say there weren't people missing limbs or whatever it is, 2,000 years ago or 100 years ago. It's just the life that you were living was incredibly different and incredibly more challenging, and still is. Pastor, I think that's fair. What I would say, though, is what you do is you talk to your doctor, and you express your concerns. And when you say, some things I do trust, some things I don't, you just talk to your doctor. What What are the things that you do not trust when it comes to the medical system, and why? And, talk to your doctor about it. Well, Canada is definitely not demonic. Canada is the greatest country in the world, in my opinion. Very proud to be here. Very proud to be Canadian. That's not to say other countries, whatever country it is in which you live, I think it's nothing wrong with thinking it's the best country in the world. When even a country like the United States or whatever it is, you can disagree with the political system in a country, or Canada, whatever it is. You can disagree with the political system, but that doesn't mean you should not love the country itself. Society being unforgiving and unkind, well, whenever you have a society that is unforgiving and unkind, that does not help. I don't know, Walter. I walk up and down the streets, or wheel up and down the streets every day. I talk to people. Don't see any demons running around at the moment. Everybody seems pretty friendly and kind. Oh, well, I say that. There's a-holes, but there's a-holes in every country. Again, let's try to be positive here on stream. There's enough negativity in the real world. Maybe let's not bring it into YouTube. We all know how positive the internet can be. Sometimes the surface goes deeper than you think, Walter. Sometimes you scratch the surface, there's more surface. That's interesting, Pastor. We're not supposed to care about what others think. I mean, I would agree and disagree. I think, look, if you care about what other people think, and we are kids, it happens all the time. Well, I'm still here. I'm not glowing green yet. I just got my 7th shot a couple weeks ago. When it comes to caring about what other people think or not caring, right? Here's the thing. I don't think you should ever care about what other people think if your goal is to be just liked for its own sake. Like, if you want to be popular just because you want to be popular and you want people to like you, then that's a bad reason to care about what other people think. And that's true for Freemasonry as well, right? You should never want your brothers to like you just for them to like you and to be popular. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on kind of how you look at it, like, you need to care about what people think to a certain extent to get things done, right? Like, and that's true in Freemasonry. If I want to have a Christmas party, I need to care about what people think, right? I need to care about what people think, because if I want to convince them to, let's say, fund the Christmas party, to give money for the Christmas party, if I want to have a Santa pick a date, if I just say, I don't care what you think, I'm going to organize this completely my way, and you can either like it or don't like it, well, nobody's going to show up to my Christmas party, right? Like, I've learned, and this was a hard lesson for me to learn, because my attitude for a long time was, you should never care what other people think, just do whatever you want. The problem is, it's very hard to get people to follow you or to initiate changes if you just don't care what people think. The best example, I used to work in politics a little bit, and I talked to this person who worked for a political party in polling. It was a conservative party, and they said, we don't care about polls. We don't change what we believe based on polling data, but we need to know what people think. So if we need to, we can do a better job at explaining and arguing for our point of view. So if you assume a policy that you have is really popular and you say, I'm just going to go ahead with it, and you find out it's not popular, you might fail to get that bill passed, to get that budget passed, to get whatever it is you need to get passed. So I hope I'm making sense when I say you should never care about what people think in order to be popular, but you should care about what people think so that you can better implement your ideas and your policies and your thoughts. And that's true for Freemasonry as well. You need to care about what the lodge thinks at least a little bit, because if you don't and you're trying to implement changes, you're going to fail. It's a tough balance. It's a tough balance. Well, I mean, I think growing up, everybody got teased, especially back in the day. I got teased having no legs. It happens. It's okay. I'm sure she understood. What's up, Terrifier? Good to see you. I do not. I'm proud to go on record as saying I do not support slavery. Even when it comes to caring, I mean, I'm not Christian myself, Walter, but I'm not a Christian, but I would say, even when it came to Jesus, like, obviously, if you're a Christian, your first concern should be your spiritual self and being in line with kind of the New Testament and Jesus. But even with that, I would assume most churches, most Christians will care about what other people think, at least in terms of setting up programs and services and outreach that will reach the most people. Like, if you don't care about what others think, you're going to have a very hard time reaching them with your kind of religious ideas and religious philosophies. I do not support slavery of any sort. I try to plug my YouTube page sometimes within Freemasonry and within Masonic meetings, but not often, because I want to make sure that within a lodge, the focus is on the lodge and not anything else. But every now and then I'll mention it. Terrifier, okay, why? I feel like that's a self-evident thing, but I think all men are equal. It's, again, if I want to put it in Masonic terms, one of the geometric principles of Euclid is things that are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. I believe whether you are black, white, we are all equal in the eyes of the Supreme Being. And since we're all equal in the eyes of the Supreme Being, that means we're all equal to each other as well. I think, honestly, and one of the things I've learned from Freemasonry is that there are moral lessons to be derived from geometry and from science and from rationality and from geometric principles. So that's one of my most prized Masonic lessons, is that the rationality of the universe can demonstrate moral truths. I'm not sure who Charles Taze Russell is, but I'll check that out. Very cool. Okay, cool. He might have been a Freemason. I think he was. I think I read somewhere, I could be mistaken, that the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses was a Freemason. I know the founder of the Mormons was a Freemason. Most prized lesson. So one of the most prized lessons within Freemasonry is the idea, and this is what I took from it. Not everybody will agree, but one thing I took from it is the idea that we can derive moral lessons and moral instruction through the rational nature of the universe and through geometric principles and geometric ideas. And again, the example I always use is the movie Lincoln, where Lincoln, when faced with a moral dilemma, uses the geometric principles of Euclid to come to a solution. How do we do that? Well, so first of all, just the fact that we have a rational universe um, in and of itself, I think, allows for morality to exist. Because if we could not rationally understand the consequences of our actions, then we could not make moral decisions, right? Our ability to make a moral decision, first of all, is predicated on being able to know and understand how those decisions, like the consequences of those decisions. If I can never know or never properly understand the consequences of my decisions, I cannot make moral decisions. Um, so it allows us, the rationality allows us. But from the Masonic and the geometric idea, again, if you look at the movie Lincoln, right, and this is the example I often try to use, Lincoln was faced with a moral question. He could either end the Civil War, potentially end the Civil War quickly, or end the Civil War, but the cost would be slavery might continue to exist for a longer period of time, or he could allow the war to continue, but in doing so, ensure the passage of the 14th Amendment, I think it was, and basically end slavery, or ensure that slavery would be ended. And when faced with that moral question, in the movie, he uses Euclid's geometric principles to come to a conclusion. And that's based on some historical truth, because we know that Lincoln, when he was a traveling lawyer, traveled with a copy of Euclid's Elements in his case and would read it at night. He wrote by candlelight. And he brings up one of Euclid's principles, which says things that are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. And for him, obviously, in this context, he's thinking, white people are equal to God in the same way black people are equal to God. Not that they're the same as God, but, you have the supreme being, and both white people, black people are equal in the eyes of the supreme being in the same way. So therefore, they must be equal to each other. And if they're equal to each other, then it's wrong to enslave one group or another. And that was in Lincoln, right? But within Freemasonry, you see that all the time. This idea of a rational universe, and the moral lessons, the order you can therein understand, right? So, for example, when we talk about square conduct, right? That's a metaphor, but the idea of a square, we can derive a moral lesson from the idea of a square always being 90 degrees. It means there's always a proper way to act. There's always a way to understand things. Um, Being on the level, right? Being on the level with one another. Um, but I think that is kind of the idea. That's always what I've said. I think rationality is itself a type of morality. That doesn't mean you can't have relativity as well, right? Because I believe in relativity. But again, even relativity, it's a rational system. You can't say, like, I'm going whatever speed I feel. No, there's rational calculations you can make. There's rational ways to understand the world, even in a relativistic framework. I think that rationality is at the core of any moral decisions. And when you talk about geometric principles, geometric ideas, um, order and symmetry of the universe, which we discuss within Freemasonry, that there's an order and a symmetry. I think there's a lesson in there that if there is a order and if there is asymmetry within the universe, then that's a hint, or not even a hint, that's a pretty heavy statement that there's a moral order therein also. And I think the way we discover it is by studying the universe and through science and through math and through rationality. The founder of Freemasonry would probably be, I call them, there's different people you can pick, different people with different ideas. I would say the founder of Freemasonry is Anthony Sayer, the first Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of England. Mr. Keeps, I mean, I think it'd be wonderful if you joined, and I'm sure the York Rite would be very happy to have you. I hope my answer made sense to you about rationality and morality and geometry and morality. Um, IRS, that's a name. Um, I'm in Scotland right now. I'm going to be in Scotland in about 3 weeks, and I cannot wait. 2 weeks, actually. I'm beyond excited. I got nominated for an award, so I'm hoping to get it, knock on wood. But even if I don't, to be there to meet my family is going to be incredible. Um, um, yes, brother Courtney, I agree. Congratulations to any Masons who have been nominated for a Hiram Award. I've interviewed a few winners over the years of the Hiram Award and a few nominees as well. I would not say income tax is slavery, Elroy. I would say income tax is the price you pay to live in a society with roads. Um, do Freemasons have any ancient furniture? We have old furniture, but not, I mean, define ancient, right? I mean, if you're in England, they probably have some stuff 400 years old. Probably no more than 400 years old at the oldest. I don't think I'm going to go beyond the 18th degree Scottish Rite for the time being. Um, I'm just too busy with other things. I'm not saying it's not on my radar, but it's going to be many years down the line. I could, but I'd be a terrible builder, Yuri. I got nominated for the Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards. Um, Out of, again, it takes place um, in the Grand Lodge of Scotland. The ceremony is on November 26th. So I'm excited. I love to travel. I love to um, travel for Masonic events. It's my favorite thing to do. I will. So we're gonna have it's a award for written work. So anybody who has written about Freemasonry, you can be nominated for this award, right? So it's about written works that promote either Masonic ideas, Masonic questions, provide a better understanding of the craft, or provide a better understanding of how lodges can kind of grow within the craft, or Masons can grow within the craft. Because I'll be traveling from the 21st to the 29th, I'm going to have a very different schedule during that time. I will be posting about my schedule and the type of content I'll be producing during that time shortly, so pay attention to that. Also, normally on the 21st of every month, I have a live stream, a 24-hour live stream. I go from the 21st to the 22nd. Um, However, this coming 21st, I have a third degree, so I'm going to be changing up what I'm going to be doing. I will let you guys know. Again, just follow along my socials and you'll learn what I'm up to. Well, Yuri, I'm not opposed to that. I used to be a libertarian. I'm not anymore. I get the argument though. And I think for me, I don't, how do I put this? I still have a libertarian streak in me in that, um, my opinion is I think society is better when you have charities and community groups and religious organizations for that matter, and just civic organizations that are strong and that can, I think society is better served if before someone needs to apply for social assistance, that person can go to a Masonic lodge for support or his church for support or Knights of Columbus for support or a food bank or whatever it is, right? I think we as a society are better and stronger if we have a strong social safety net that is first and foremost at the charitable individual civic level. Even, going to your neighbor to ask for help, if knowing your neighbors. The difference is, I no longer believe that's sufficient. I believe that government does have a role to play in the social safety net as well, and a very important role. But I don't disagree. In my heart of hearts, it always kind of breaks my heart a little bit when I learn of a Mason or a Freemason who is, um, uh, you know, uh, uh, struggling and either did not turn to his Masonic Lodge for support, or the Masonic Lodge was not able to provide him with support. I'd rather they go to the Masonic Lodge first and then try to take advantage of government programs. Or not even take advantage is the right term, use government programs. But I no longer think it's sufficient. You need both. And they should be working together. You should have a strong civic and a strong civil society, and they should work together to protect each other, or protect that society, protect the citizens therein. Thank you, Brother Courtney. That's very kind of you. I did not know that either. Everybody's borrowing stuff from Freemasons, I tell you. Well, hopefully we're always doing that, right? Hopefully we're always asking for government funds to be allocated in the best way possible. I think that one of the dangers, well, not dangers, but the question will always be, what is the best way, right? Because not everybody's going to agree on the best way to allocate funds. And that does make it very, very challenging. But I agree with you in principle, certainly. That's interesting. I've known a couple of Wiccan Freemasons. So I'll have to ask them about that. Not many. I think I've known two Wiccan Freemasons from the States. But I'll have to ask them about that. Do I think I can win a wrestling match against an alligator? No. I think the alligator would absolutely crush me. So, I mean, do you think you could win a wrestling match against an alligator? That's my question. I'm just going to make that my poll question, because why not? Friday Fun Day. Oops. Could you... We got Smoke in the house. Win a wrestling match against an alligator. Yes or no? That's the question. We're gonna assume an average sized alligator. So whatever the average size of an alligator is. And we got two people saying yes. You guys are crazy. Do not wrestle an alligator. I'm saying that right now for the world to hear. You, you will lose. Oh my God, Yuri. I wish you best of luck. I think you're going to fail pretty miserably. I don't think it's going to work out for you. What is an Amazon mystery box? I don't think I don't think it would matter. I think we'd still lose. I mean, what we'd have to do, I think, is like you'd almost have to like. I mean, I'm not even gonna speculate because some crazy person's gonna do it. It's gonna be an issue. Just another reminder to everybody, like I mentioned this before, flights are getting canceled right now in the States. If you have to travel, Shreddies cereal. If you're traveling to, well, anywhere, but if you're traveling to a Masonic event, um, give yourself extra time. Don't leave it last minute. You could be in for a fair bit of trouble. I know one friend of mine on Facebook, he was flying back home to Chicago, and for his first flight was canceled. Then his second flight got delayed, and I think he's still waiting to make it back home. He's supposed to be home yesterday. So it's an interesting time. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, most, I can say I'm against MAGA, I guess. But beyond that, I'd say I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to depend on because at the end of the day, with Freemasonry, what you see is it usually just reflects like the opinions of the lodge usually just reflect the broader opinions of the public and the communities in which they're located. So my suspicion is, um, if you're in a New York Masonic lodge, you're probably more likely to have more anti-MAGA people in there. If you're in a Masonic lodge in a blue state, you're probably going to have more pro-MAGA people. Or sorry, red state, excuse me. It's really just going to depend on the communities in which you're located. So I would probably assume it seems like it's about a 50-50. Like in general, it's whatever the typical kind of political beliefs are of the communities. I've been to some Masonic lodges in the States where it's in like Texas and they're pretty pro-Trump. I once was in a lodge where they had a secretary had a bobblehead of Donald Trump on his desk, which I was not a big fan of because I thought that was too political to be in a Masonic lodge, but not my lodge, not my place to say. Um, but uh, yeah, in terms of, I've also been to lodges where, my suspicion is they were not fans of Donald Trump at all. It just depends. They should. I mean, whether they do or not, I can't say, but they should if they're following the rules of what Freemasonry is supposed to be, which is apolitical. Having said that, I can't speak for every lodge, right? It just depends. Um, and also, how it is they bring him up matters as well, right? So, for example, if they were to say the federal government and Donald Trump have created a new program, they're providing funding for fraternal organizations to, I don't know, hold public events. I mean, that's bringing up Donald Trump, but it's not bringing up Donald Trump in a political way per se. It's talking about a government policy or program that may affect the Masonic Lodge. If somebody were to get up in lodge and just say, if a Freemason were to just get up and say, "I love Donald Trump and you should vote for him," that would not be good, and that should get a repudiation. Well, Freemasons aren't, but stonemasons may be working on the ballroom. I'd assume that he's got at least a couple stonemasons employed in this particular, or contracted might be the better term, in this particular job. Maybe they'll find the lost Masonic cornerstone. Who knows? That famously went missing for years and years. 6 votes. Could you fight a crocodile? 50-50. Jeez Louise. I don't know, man. There's 6 votes. 3 people saying that. I think 3 of you are crazy. Sometimes goodbye, Dad. I love you. Thanks for being here. Sometimes idealism can be a type of realism. I mean, I tend to run pretty cynical very often, but I try to temper that. At least on YouTube. My thinking is there's enough negativity on social media and places like YouTube, anyways. I don't want to be adding to it. And by the way, to everybody watching this, if you are brand new to the stream and you haven't done so before, please hit like and subscribe. Oof. You might have at some point. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. Just reading this in CNN, if the federal government shutdown doesn't end relatively soon, the Department of Transportation may decide to increase the number of canceled flights at designated airports to 15 or 20%. Which, at that point, that's crazy. 15 to 20%. Well, it's not too late, Yuri. You can like the video right now and then problem solved. Well, I'm not a big fan of the person making the decisions either, but I don't know if I'd say falling apart. I think America is one of those countries which, to its credit, like it's crazy how many challenges and crises it has managed to get through, right? I mean, I think America, from a purely historical perspective, um, America has shown incredible resiliency. There's a few crises happening right now. I'm not going to disagree with that, but what I will say is I don't think that those crises are insurmountable, and I don't think they're going to last forever. You can send me an email, Pastor, and I can let him know what you want to talk about. The email is info@squareandcompass.ca. We're going to give this another, let's say, 10 minutes or so. Wait to see who else jumps on to say hello. And please, as always, hit that like and subscribe button. But we're just going to hang out now, wait to see, like I said, who jumps on and who says hello. I hope everybody, though, is doing well. And I hope you're going to have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to, I got a meeting tonight, which is going to be really fun. And then I've got I mean, fun is not the right term for Sunday, which is our Masonic memorial service, but it's going to be a special, important ceremony is the term I'd use. Okay, shoot me off the email, info@scoreandcompass.ca, and I'll let him know. But obviously, I can't be sharing stuff on stream. Well, I mean, you should never lie to yourself. But what I would say is, or lie to others for that matter. Um, what I would say though is just talk to a Masonic Lodge, explain the situation, explain what you believe, and see what they say. Um, that's kind of where you start, right? Start there and then move on. But don't automatically disqualify yourself. It doesn't cost you anything to ask, nor should it. Oh, once again with the COVID, I got all my COVID shots and I'm still here. So what can I say? Not glowing green yet. Maybe that's coming soon. I don't know. We shall see. Okay, well then, yeah. So if you are ardently, atheist in every sense, then yeah. Like I said, usually supreme being is interpreted very broadly. Um, well, irregular lodges aren't always online, but where are you from, Nunya? If you don't mind my asking. Okay, yeah, because in the Europe, there are some irregular lodges which are they're called liberal. They don't necessarily require belief in a supreme being. I consider them they're irregular, so I could never attend one of their meetings, nor could they attend one of ours. But I consider them to be, though irregular, they're not scam lodges or anything. They're legitimate Masonic bodies. Some have been around for a couple hundred years or so. Um, they're not recognized by most jurisdictions. But like I can't think of the names now. There's one in the Philippines. There's a few. So, but in rural Oklahoma, yeah, you're pretty much you have to believe in a supreme being, and also, um, yeah, no, not a ton. Um, hey, what's up? What's going on, Christopher? Good to see you. Thank you for joining as always. Freemasonry isn't about taking your time, it's about making your time count. Yes, I would agree with that. Freemasonry is about making your time count. Freemasonry is about making every block you use to build something count as well. Right? It's about making everything count. We only get one life, so we might as well make the whole thing count if we can. I'm one subscriber away from 2,810 subs. If you want to do that to help me out, I'd appreciate it. Like I said, I'm looking forward to my meeting tonight very much. It's going to be fun. And then next week, so this Sunday, I have the Masonic Memorial Service at Malden Park. It could be. I mean, especially the second part, why it matters. That's relevant as well, right? Because it's not just, you always want to think about, whenever you're doing anything, you always want to think about not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. Um, I think sometimes we forget to explain, especially even to newer Masons, not just what we do, but why we're doing it, why it's important, why it matters. And if we don't explain that, it can be very tough. We're going to give it a bit more. Just going to wait to see if anyone else jumps in the chat to say hello. Again, no specific topics. for the last little bit, just hanging out. Well, I mean, I don't think any amount of money, because we would not be wailing, we would not be tearing down anything. Freemasonry is about building, not about tearing things down. At least it should be about building things up, not about tearing anything down. Um, I would be very saddened if anybody tore anything down, including anybody's religious iconography. Well, I mean, there is no Masonic kind of position on Scientology. Every Freemason will make up his or her, for that matter, but his own mind about it. I have no issues with Scientology. Again, I don't know a lot about it. To my understanding, they believe in a supreme being, so they would be welcome to be, a Freemason. But I don't know much else about it in terms of, for example, the specifics of the belief system. But if it's something that brings people happiness or comfort within their lives, then I'm not gonna knock it. And there's a Scientology building in downtown Detroit, which when I traveling, especially when I'm going to Chicago, let's say, I usually take the bus to Detroit and then take another bus. And I always pass by that building on my way to the bus station in Detroit. Never stopped inside though. But the fact that I get so many questions about it makes me think maybe I should stop by and just say hello. Who knows? We have somebody on the stream to talk about it. I don't know enough about it to say right now. You too, Nanya, and thank you for being here as always. Just giving it a couple more minutes. We'll finish this stream at 3 p.m. Give me a chance to get myself over to the Masonic building and get ready. I would love it if it did. That would be awesome. Um, I mean, I've never found a Scientology soda machine. I did not know they had Scientology soda machines. But the fact that they do, I say awesome. I'll have to try it. I will have to try it. You'd have to ask each Mason, pastor. I know some who are very much proponents of the herb and some who are opposed to it. I've never done it myself. Um, I'm not particularly opposed to it per se. I don't really have any opinions on it one way or the other. That is true. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna start looking for one of these things. I should start wearing my ring just to see if I can get free soda. Because I drink a lot of coffee, but I don't mind soda pop either. All right. I think what we're going to do is end this stream, but thank you so much, everybody who joined. This was fun. These Friday streams are just chill streams. No 1 a.m. stream. Instead, be prepared for some posts this weekend. Follow me on social media, all that good jazz. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you all soon. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.